Hello friends, it's your boy BB and welcome back to the channel. This is the game that we'll all been waiting for. It's Friday and it's the 11th round of Tata Steel where world champion Magnus Carlsen is gonna face Anish Giri. So Anish is leading the tournament as we've said in the previous video, and today we're gonna see if Magnus was able to bounce back to win. So he could give himself a chance to win this tournament, or Giri was able to hold. So without losing any more time, let's dive straight into this game. We're not gonna analyze too much because this channel is more like to not to be as masters on chess, but to bring more people in the chess world, and so we can enjoy the chess like a fun game. So without losing any more time, let's see this game where Magnus opens with e4. So is Giri going for his knight here? That's all people have been waiting for, because Giri made that course on Sicilian knight defense, and he is like the most expert in the Sicilian knight. But here in this game he didn't go for that because maybe he thought that Magnus would prepare something against Najdorf and he wanted to go for something to send Magnus out of book. So he decided to go e5 here. And okay, we don't have a Sicilian defense on the board, and we have Magnus develops a knight. We have knight f3 and Giri goes knight c6. So we have, and after Magnus goes bishop c4, we have an Italian game on the board, and Giri goes bishop to c5, and Magnus here have a chance to go for the Evans Gambit. The Evans Gambit, we know that is b4, but he didn't, because this is one of the most exciting openings on chess. Go here b4, but Magnus didn't go for this, but rather he went c3. So we have a gioco piano of the Italian game, and now Giri goes knight f6. We have d3 from Magnus, and here Giri decides to castle. Magnus attacks the bishop now on c5. Giri moves the bishop to e7. He goes back because he didn't want to go in this square, because Magnus would have just pushed this pawn and then harassed the bishop here. So he decided to go with the bishop on e7, and now Magnus goes knight b to d2, and he prepares to castle. Maybe now, or maybe he will postpone a little bit. And now we have d5 from Giri, strikes in the center here, attacking the bishop. And Magnus decides not to trade here, but to move the bishop back to b3. And we have g4 from Giri, pinning this knight. And then Magnus decides to move from the pin here. Sorry about that. And then he went queen to c2. We have d captures on c4 from Giri, attacking the knight. And Magnus recaptures on e4. And we have d6 from Giri. He prepares maybe to put the rook here, that's why I moved the bishop. And we have h3 from Magnus, attacking the bishop and asking Giri if he wants to trade here or to go with the bishop back. So Giri decides to go h5 with the bishop back. He prefers to keep the pieces on the board. And we have rook b1 from Magnus, a5 from Giri, advancing this pawn on a5. And Magnus doesn't prefer to capture here, to double his pawns, but rather he goes a3, protects the pawn. And Giri goes a captures on b4. A captures on b4. Giri now has this open file for his rook here. That is very interesting. And we have b5 from Giri. We have castle from Magnus. Now he decides to castle, and now knight e7 from Giri. Goes back with the knight. Maybe he wants to transport this knight to g6 and maybe to go to f4. That is a very interesting square for the knight. And Magnus goes rook e1 here. We have queen c8 from Giri, and now queen d3 from Magnus, making some improvement on the position. And now a rook b8 from Giri. We have knight h4 from Magnus. And now knight g6 as planned. Giri sends the knight here and asks Magnus if he wants to trade here or he wants to go back with the knight. And now Magnus decides to trade here, but this is not something that you want to do, because why you want to trade here and then give Giri to capture back here, and then Giri is playing pretty much for a draw here, so a draw would favor him because he's leading a tournament. So Magnus, the best move is just to go back with the knight and then asking Giri what he's going to do. But maybe he was afraid that if he go back, then Giri might go back here with the knight, attacking the queen, and Magnus would have just need to move the queen, and then he didn't want to give Giri that much activity. But indeed, this was not the best move, but Magnus decides to capture here on g6, and okay, Giri captures with a bishop, and now we have knight f1, we have rook d8 from Giri, and now queen f3, c5 from Giri, asking Magnus if he wants to capture, or if he doesn't, Giri just might push here the pawn here and then attacks the bishop, closes this diagonal, because for the moment this bishop is a very good piece, doing a very nice job here in this diagonal. That's why Giri just pushed this pawn. It was a backwards pawn, so he, of course, to push it. And now Magnus goes bishop g5, pinning this knight for the moment because the rook would hang if Giri decides to move the knight. And now we have bishop e7. Giri, of course, protects that. And now knight g3 from Magnus. We have c4 from Giri, closing the light square bishop here. And bishop to c2. We have h6, tagging the bishop. And now Magnus goes bishop e3. It's not in his favor to trade more pieces because he already traded knight there when he could have go back. And now queen c6 from Giri. We have g7. We have we have knight f5 first from Magnus, and then Giri goes bishop captures on f5. Of course, he wants to remove the pieces from the board, so a draw, as we said, would favor him. And now Magnus goes queen captures on b5, capturing back the piece, and now g6 from Giri, attacking the queen. The queen must go back, so Magnus decides to send it to f3. And now Anish goes king g7. He improves the position of the king. The king is very safe here. And now we have rook a1 for Magnus. He wants to control the open files with his rook. And now rook a8. Giri counters Magnus' rook. And Magnus goes queen e2. Giri immediately captures the rook here on a1. He wants to trade all the pieces as soon as possible. And now Magnus recaptures the rook, of course. And now a rook to a8. Giri wants also to trade the other rook. It's just a simple. Magnus sent this game to a very, very, very easy game for Giri, just to trade pieces for him. And then Magnus just trades here again, and now Giri just recaptures back the rook. We have queen d2 for Magnus. He has a nice control on this file here, but h5 from Giri. King h2, Magnus also improves the position of the king. And now queen c6 from Giri. We have queen e2 for Magnus. This position is a draw pretty much. There's not much to push here, but still they're gonna play some more moves. And now queen e6 from Giri. We have g3 from Magnus, advancing that pawn. And now we have bishop d8. Whoa, this. Sorry about that, because this screen moved. The interference is just lagging here. Okay, so as we said, we have queen e6, and now we have g3 from Magnus. Giri goes bishop to d8, and now we have king to g2. b6 from Giri. We have bishop g5, and now we have knight h7, tagging the bishop. Magnus goes back with the bishop to c1, and now Giri, of course, goes back with knight to f6. Magnus repeats one more time to g5. Giri repeats again, knight h7, still attacking the bishop, and now Magnus didn't have much here. He decides to go bishop c1, and Giri goes knight f6, and here Magnus repeats for a third time bishop g5, and this was 3/4 repetition, and the game ended in a draw. So such an easy game for Giri. Magnus tried that knight in the beginning, and then all the game went smooth, and then it was a draw. The world champion missed his chance to win this game, so he could have a chance to win the tournament, and Giri took that must wanted to draw with world champion, and now he's still on the lead on the tournament. And now I'm gonna show you the standings real quick. So we have the standings here. So as we see, Anish Giri is leading the tournament with 7.5 points, and then Fabiano Caruana and Alireza Firouzja draw their game today, and they are both on 7. Van Forest won, and now he went to 7 out of 11. And Sipenko 6.5 and Magnus on 6. Magnus pretty much with two rounds left to go. It's out of the tournament. He can't win. But it's all between Giri, Caruana, Van Forest, and Firouzja. The next game is gonna be Giri against Alireza Firouzja, and so it's gonna be quite a clash between them. So we're gonna see. So I hope you enjoyed this game. Thank you for watching, and we will be back tomorrow for the continuation of Tata Steel, and to show you, of course, the game between Alireza Firouzja and Anish Giri, and we hope that it's gonna be such a game. So thank you one more time for watching, and blessings.